Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Mr. Motivator, he joins us now. Mr. Motivator, a very happy new year to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. There you are, bright and early. So how are things? How can we all kick ourselves into shape?
By the end of January, most people have thrown their New Year's resolution out the window. I think what's important is that we make a change for life and we set ourselves small goals. And as we achieve those goals, then we reward ourselves. And in other words, you want to run 10K, you don't immediately get up and go run 10K, do you? You run between 2 lampposts and walk between 20. If you're not into running, don't choose running. If you're into dancing, that's great. If you're into any kind of movement, that is the way to keep yourself active, healthy, and also maintain your independence.
So, Derek, is the point that you keep it manageable and small enough that it's achievable?
Why don't we just find 4 exercises that you do for 1 minute each exercise, and you do that 4 times a day? Achievable, isn't it? That's only 4 minutes of exercise. And I guarantee at the end of the day, you'd have done 12 minutes, which is like your daily dozen. So there's your goal. I want to do a daily dozen of exercise lasting a minute each, right? And the first thing you could be doing is getting up from your chair, right? The moment you stand up, you incorporate so many muscles in your legs, right, that you're going to feel good, yes? So,
right, go on then. Get up off your chair, Adam. Show me how it's done.
Easy, come on.
Easy, yeah. Look at that.
Johan, the next thing I want you to do is to reach up real high. And if you bring it down, up
I'll
and
do
down.
that one.
Yeah.
For a minute, palms facing.
Oh, for a minute?
You're not flying a minute. That's better.
There we go.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good evening, it's 9 p.m. and this is Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong. I'm covering for Patrick tonight while he takes a very well-deserved night off. He's going to be back with you on Monday evening. But don't worry though, I'll give you all my forthright opinions as usual on top of today's top story. So brace yourselves because nothing is off limits. Tonight on the show.
I'm unclear, Chair, what is meant by the question. If you could spell it out, I can answer.
I've just spelt it out. Are you not listening?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the shocking amount of times the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has failed to answer questions on grooming gangs. London Assembly member and former mayoral candidate Susan Hall's going to be joining us to tell us about that damning interaction she's had with the Mayor over those alleged grooming gangs in London. Also, are Gen Z lazy or let down? That's revealed that 1/3 of 18 to 24-year-olds have taken time off due to stress. So has our system failed younger generations, or do they just need to get off their backsides? And Bev Turner is joining us all the way from Washington as she gives us the inside scoop on Trump's impending inauguration.
That's right. Good evening from Washington, D.C. That is the White House behind me, and the city this weekend is a hive of activity, not least because all the plans have changed. Only in the last few hours the inauguration will take place inside because the forecast is for cold as much as -11 here. Tonight, though, as you can see, it's still a beautiful evening. This evening's going to be kicking off with a Stars and Stripes and Union Jack party hosted by Nigel Farage.
You're not going to want to miss that. Plus, yet another blow to Keir Starmer's inheritance tax raid on the farmers as a second major supermarket comes out in support of the farming community. Also,
we are with you, not just today or tomorrow, for this year or the next, but for 100 years.
Yeah, does the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, hate democracy? Well, while he's swanning off all over the world, it seems our Parliament is the last major place for foreign policy announcements. I'll be getting our panel stuck into that. And...
Well, you know, what makes me wince is when I look at my bank statement.
Is Rachel Reeves all right? The Chancellor's been battling severe public pressure and calls for her resignation as the economy's taken a severe battering. I'll be asking if she's cracking under the pressure. With me tonight, reacting to all these stories, is my star panel. We've got Suzanne Evans, Stephen Wolfe and JJ Anasobi. Plus...
That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Get out of my pub.
I love that clip. Is the government calling last orders on free speech in pubs? We'll hear from a man who's seen this all before, and what he's going to say is going to shock you. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Why can't Sadiq Khan define what grooming gags are? Next.
Alex, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories this hour. A group of 8 men who were part of a West Yorkshire grooming gang in the late 1990s have all been jailed. 3 of the men, 47-year-old Ibra Hussain and brothers 62-year-old Imtiaz Ahmed and 45-year-old Fayaz Ahmed, all from Keighley, were sentenced for rape today. They were found guilty of assaults on a girl after a trial in November and December last year. 5 other men were jailed for their involvement. The court heard the offenders had targeted 2 children.
If we're going to be tough, yeah, let's have the inquiry. Just as you say, you're quite right about that. But I don't think we should let the government get away with not taking the action now. We need to take the action now. And I think that's what Liberal Democrats would urge the government and all opposition parties. And I'm sure you would agree, we do need action now.
Well, that was, of course, the Liberal Democrats leader, Sir Ed Davey, who welcomed the government's announcement for a series of local inquiries into the grooming gang scandal. The Home Secretary announced government-backed local reviews in 5 areas yesterday, stopping short of committing to a full-scale national inquiry. A lawyer representing victims told GB News there may be hundreds of thousands of victims in every town and city across the country. In other news now, TikTok is to be banned in the US from Sunday if it's not sold by its Chinese parent company. That's the Supreme Court ruled that today. However, President Joe Biden says he won't force the ban for the few remaining hours he's in office, leaving it up to President-elect Donald Trump to decide what to do when he enters the White House on Monday. After the Supreme Court ruling, the White House released a statement saying TikTok should remain available to Americans. And finally, former Manchester United, Manchester City and Scotland forward Denis Law has died at the age of 84. Manchester United Football Club has posted on X saying everyone at the club is mourning the loss of Denis Law, the king of the Stretford End. And Scotland's men's national team also posted on their X account saying, a true great, we will not see his likes again. Law won 2 league titles with United and was a member of their European Cup winning side under Sir Matt Busby in 1968, when they became the first English side to lift the trophy. He scored a total of 237 goals in over 400 appearances during an 11-year spell at Old Trafford. The Aberdeen-born footballer previously announced in August 2021 that he'd been diagnosed with dementia. A family statement this evening said he fought a tough battle, but finally he is now at peace. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm back in an hour. Now it's back to Alex Armstrong.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
I'm going to tell you the shocking amount of times the Mayor of London has failed to adequately respond to questions about grooming gangs. Why does the Mayor of London seemingly not know the definition of the statement grooming gangs? Well, this week at City Hall, London's Mayor Sadiq Khan was asked a very simple and straightforward question by London Assembly member Susan Hall. Take a look at this.
I asked you this question last week and you found every which way but not to answer it. Just how many grooming gangs have we got in London?
Avoiding a misunderstanding, can she define what she means by that?
Yes, if you look at what's gone on in Rotherham, where there are people taking young girls, grooming them for sex, that is what I'm talking about.
We know in London there are issues about exploitation of young people, but they're not as defined by the member in her definition of what those types of gangs are.
Mr. Mayor, you are fully aware of what grooming gangs are, what we're talking about, because we're talking about them daily in the national press. Your party leader has been discussing them at length in PMQs. The Home Secretary just made an announcement about them this week. But obviously, a clarification is in order, so let me help you. Grooming gangs are organised groups of men exploiting, drugging, abusing and raping innocent children throughout our country. So why, in a time when the country is having a serious nationwide discussion on rape gangs, would the Mayor deflect such an important question that Londoners deserve the answer to? Is he living under a rock, or was this an ugly attempt to sidestep a difficult and uncomfortable conversation? Multiple reports over the years have alleged grooming gangs operating in London, including areas like Newham and Stratford. The Met Police warned as far back as 2017, a year after Khan became mayor, about children being exploited in London, calling these gangs a significant threat. And yet here we are, still waiting for clear, decisive action. Well, interestingly, the mayor has been pressed on this before, all the way back in 2018, when allegations of grooming gangs in London began to surface. He was asked by an Assembly member, how many girls do you estimate are currently being controlled or enslaved by grooming gangs in London? Well, the response was exactly the same. The term grooming gangs can be interpreted in different ways, his response went. Well, in fact, there's been a shocking 10 instances, 10, where Assembly members have quizzed the mayor directly about this issue, with the response always failing to declare how prolific they might be, pushing responsibility back to the Met Police and often unable to answer what exactly grooming gangs are. It's not hard. And at a time like this, when we know that between 2018 and 2023, there have been multiple incidents reported. For sexual violence and rape, they increased by 14% to almost 20,000. Don't you think the mayor should pull his head out of the sand and show some respect for all those potential victims? The mayor, of course, has come out strongly in his own defence, stating that violence against women and girls is an epidemic and had launched a citywide strategy dubbed the Tackling Violence Against Women and Girls strategy that he heralded all the way back in 2021. Now, look, that clip you saw was pretty damning. I'm joined now by former mayoral candidate and London Assembly member Susan Hall. Susan, look, why don't we get your views on what happened in that clip? I'd love for you to take it away.
Well, basically, most Londoners want to know, have we got these grooming gangs in London? My job as an Assembly member is to scrutinise the mayor and ask him questions. And as usual, he was very dismissive and he didn't want to answer. And that's what happens. And unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about that because he just gets away with it. I thought my question was very simple. It was a yes or a no. If it had been yes, then we could have explored what we can do about it. You know, I would have then had to go about the fact that the latest budget shows that we're going to lose at least 1,800 police off our streets. We can't afford to do that. But he just would not answer the question. And he is the Police and Crime Commissioner for London. We've got 9 million people in London, and he should damn well ask the questions that are put to him.
Well, look, what is it? I mean, he's had 10 instances. I went back through the records of the General Assembly. 10 instances. He's also, as I said in my monologue there, referred to it as, you know, not being able to define it before. Why is he skipping around this issue? Is there more going on here? Why is Sadiq Khan just not answering the question?
I don't know, and he wouldn't. I asked him last week in a budget meeting, and he wouldn't answer then either. I think the trouble is the media up until now, and Charlie Peters is amazing, the media up until now have shied away from all this. I don't know what Sadiq Khan was expecting me to say yesterday, but if he was expecting me to say what everybody thinks he was, he would then scream racist at me, because that's what he's used to doing. He did that all the way through the mayoralty. I had leaflets going out with racist written across my face all over London, because up until now, the way Labour get rid of right wing, or those of us on the right of centre, get rid of us, is to accuse us of being racist. Well, we've all had enough of this now, and hopefully this will start to stop. And people like Sadiq Khan will have to just stand on their own records, and his is appalling.
Well, we've seen Labour ministers and secretaries of state, condemn what they would call inflammatory language being used by the right, or the far right, as they call many people. Do you think that Sadiq Khan's just as guilty of that by not actually answering and seemingly not having any respect to actually be able to define what a grooming gang is?
Well, yes. I mean, that video or the clip has been viewed millions of times through various different ways, and all the comments underneath, people want to know if we've got grooming gangs in London. To be honest with you, I can't imagine we haven't, given how many places in the country there are. But he should at least face up to it. He's the Police and Crime Commissioner. He is responsible for the Metropolitan Police, and he needs to make sure more of his £21 billion budget goes into the Metropolitan Police, not coming out. They're going to be starved of yet more officers, and God help us all.
Susan, thank you so much. Sorry we're squeezed for time tonight, but thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure this is going to be going on a lot longer. But let's get the thoughts of my panel. We've got political consultant Suzanne Evans, the Director of Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and journalist and broadcaster JJ Anasobi. OK, JJ, I'd love to start with you. Why do you think Sadiq Khan just can't answer this question? What's the reason?
I think he thinks by avoiding answering, it's going to relieve the pressure and he can just move on. But all it does actually is make it worse for everyone concerned. It makes people who are right of centre think, well, Labour are doing some kind of cover-up here, Sadiq Khan's doing some kind of cover-up. There must be something more going on. But if I'm honest, I used to go to London assemblies. I've been going there for many years, since the days of Ken Livingstone. Ken Livingstone did the same thing. Boris Johnson was the king of equivocation. People would launch questions at Boris Johnson. If he bothered to turn up, he wouldn't answer anything. He would mess with his hair and move on to the next thing. This is normal politics, I'm afraid, in the London Assembly.
Suzanne, I don't know.
Suzanne disagrees.
I hope so, because I feel this is just nonsense, don't you? I mean, he is the Mayor of London. He's the Police and Crime Commissioner de facto as part of that role. Surely he can answer and define what a grooming gang is, and doesn't need to direct that question back to Susan Hall.
I'm absolutely disgusted with him. It's that simple. You know, as Susan Hall said in the Assembly chamber, he knows exactly what a grooming gang doesn't. Anybody, unless they've been living under a rock for the last 10 years, knows what a grooming gang is. This was an attempt by Khan to basically sweep it under the carpet, pretend it didn't matter, close his eyes and hope it'll all go away. And this is exactly why we need a national inquiry, to stop people like him getting away with avoiding this issue. Yeah. I'm absolutely disgusted.
Yeah,
I really am.
And I know that clip, and Susan's great. She was saying that she's had lots of responses. I was talking to her earlier on. Lots of people responding about that clip. Stephen, look, is this the kind of political correctness that's got us into this mess in the first place?
Well, to a certain extent, yes, but it's also the measure of the man. The man shows himself there to be arrogant, indifferent, uncaring about the people that have suffered the mass abuse that they've got. He looks down his nose at other people who are questioning him, not only Susan Hall, but also, I think it's Alec Armstrong from the Reform Party. Wilson.
I'm Alex Armstrong. Not quite there yet.
No, actually, maybe you should. You might actually be able to get a little bit better. But Alex Wilson, who also asked a very pertinent question, and he simply dismissed him. He acts like a mob boss. He acts like, with that, I'm so untouchable that it doesn't matter what you say or what you do. And to a certain extent, he is untouchable. untouchable because of the way that London is structured and the way that he's protected by Keir Starmer. But what we should look at him is say that is our political class. That's why we need change. That's why we must fight against these individuals. And London really needs to remove him to put someone who is genuinely caring.
Stephen, but we had a vote. And Susan Hall, and I like Susan Hall as a person, I like her very much, but her campaign was terrible. She was the only person possibly who could have removed Khan. Londoners spoke and they wanted Khan. Despite the fact that crime's through the roof, despite all the things we complain about in London, they still thought Sadiq Khan was a better choice than Susan Hall. So the people have spoken.
Suzanne, I mean, I think we should talk about, is this a general failure? I mean, it's easy to pin this on Sadiq Khan because of his comments. I know they seem very brash. And some people would argue, is it down to him? Can he actually define it? Because there's a lot going into this. So there's rape, there's violence against women, there's child sexual exploitation.
He doesn't care, does he? He's stuck in. He's mayor of London. He's got his job. He's got his knighthood now.
And probably a House of Lords.
And probably will eventually get into the House of Lords if, of course, he doesn't become leader of the Labour Party first, which I suspect he's probably angling for. But, people should ask themselves, is this man fit to be mayor? Is this man fit to be an MP? Is he fit to be in the Lords? If, frankly, he can't answer a simple question like that, if he can't define what a grooming gang is, if he honestly doesn't know, if he wants to sweep this under the carpet, how the heck are kids supposed to get justice? If even the man who's supposed to be heading up the police in London refuses to even accept that there is a problem.
Well, JJ, obviously Sadiq Khan launched that massive strategy, the tackling violence against girls and women. He's heralded that. He said that's been really successful. Do you think that maybe it needs more time before those sorts of things can actually work for the police, or is it underfunding? What do you think Sadiq Khan would say if he was sitting here right now?
Police were...
Nothing.
Police
refused to come here and ask questions.
Police in this country were cut because of the previous government, not because of Labour.
So you blame it on the Tories?
I blame it on the... In terms of police cuts, in terms of most of our social services, was down to the Tories. I think it is. I think it is. I think it is.
Let JJ finish.
And I do think... I think Khan made a mistake today by not saying what grooming gang is. As many politicians previously, akin to this, couldn't describe what a woman is. You know what I mean? They tread along the line trying to cater to the left, whilst only all they're doing is making everyone else extremely angry. But in my home county, the West Midlands, the biggest child grooming gang so far in the history of this country, 21 people, I believe it was, all of them are white people. Their colour and their race was never brought into it. The problem we're having currently, I guess what Sadiq Khan is trying to do there is avoid bringing race and religion into this discussion.
Exactly, as your question asked Stephen earlier, it's the political correctness that got us into this trouble in the first place.
Yeah,
I think that's only part of it, though. I think the political correctness is, but it's also about really how those in the elite positions think. They want to hide their own culpability. They want to hide the fact that they did nothing. This is why they had the initial inquiries, like ICSA, which actually said nothing about this. It didn't challenge the individuals who'd committed the wrongdoing. None of them are going to prison. And in these new inquiries, none of them are actually going to be forced to go to be questioned. That's what's wrong.
Listen, I think there needs to be far more powers given to these inquiries. Far more needs to be done, I believe, in a national inquiry. But we'll catch up more about this, I'm sure. But in a complete change of tone, it's now time for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway. This is your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could all be yours. Here's all the details on how you can win that 50k.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, coming up, the Prime Minister pledges a 100-year pact with Ukraine, suggesting there could be British boots on the ground, and announces a surrender of the Chagos Islands, all without consulting Parliament. does the Prime Minister hate democracy? But next, as it's revealed 1 in 3 18 to 24-year-olds took time off with stress last year, are the Generation Z, lazy or just let down? This is Patrick Christys tonight with Alex Armstrong. I'll see you shortly.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we're going to introduce you to Liam Wildish. Liam, well, I'd like to think he's a friend of mine because I follow him on Instagram, on TikTok there as well.
You're a big fan, aren't you?
Big fan, because there's what he does. He's a cleaner. He cleans signs. But the thing is, he's not employed by councils or whatever. He does this voluntarily. And you sort of think to yourself, well, who cleans these signs? Why have these signs been allowed to get into this terrible state of disrepair and filthiness?
So basically, long story short, about 6 years ago, I used to be a window cleaner. In the community where I lived, I noticed all of the road signs were filthy, and I was perfectly equipped to clean them. So basically, I cleaned the road signs as a bit of a thank you to the community and sort of make a little bit of awareness of my window cleaning business at the time. Yeah. Sort of cleans up the area, makes the road safer, and that's kind of how that started. And people found it like a really satisfying sort of approach. So that sort of led on to today of a video in cleaning the dirty road signs and making sort of satisfying content with it as well.
What is the equipment? What have we got here?
So this is a water-fed pole system connected to a backpack, which is what feeds the water through the end of the brush there. It's perfectly equipped to basically remove this green dirty, it's like a mildew build-up that you get on the signs. Yeah. As you can see, this is like extremely effective at removing so.
So GB News viewers, if they spot a particularly grisly sign in their area, then they can get in touch.
They can do, yeah.
And Liam Wildish, the sign guy, can sort you out.
if you find Liam the sign guy online, drop me a message, let me know, and I'll add you to my list of places.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Patrick Christys tonight with me, Alex Armstrong. Coming up, the BBC sunk to a new low. I'll reveal all very soon. But first, can we really afford to keep funding Ukraine? It's time now for our head-to-head. According to a report, Gen Z is taking off more time for stress than their older colleagues. This burnout report says that 1 in 3 young people aged 18 to 24 needed time off last year because of stress. 1 in 3. It makes you wonder if today's youth are just a little bit work shy. Well, are they really that overwhelmed, or are they simply just not as tough as previous generations? I'm joined now by actor and commentator Charlie Lawson and political commentator Jess Gill. Look, Jess, I'd love to start with you. Is this generation just simply entitled and they just can't get off their backsides and go to work. They just love sitting at home, doom scrolling through TikTok and playing on PlayStation. Is that what really this is all about?
Yeah, no, as much as I love doom scrolling on TikTok, I don't actually think that's the reason why so many young people don't enjoy what they do at work or feel overwhelmed at work. I think honestly, and I know probably every generation says this, but I genuinely think society and our economy and our general culture is against young people, particularly British young people. I think a lot of young people don't have a job they can resonate with. They feel that they're so easily replaceable. And I think especially with the mass immigration that we've seen over the past few decades, they don't have a sense of duty and community and responsibility that the previous generations had. So no, I don't think we should blame young people for that.
Yeah, well, Charlie, welcome to the show. Look, Rishi Sunak wanted to have national service brought back. Do you think that's the sort of thing we need to do now because young people are just so detached from the real world of work?
Hi, Jess. How are you, darling? Listen, I've been saying this for years, mate. I mean, a couple of years ago, I said on to Paddy Christys and whatever, there are now warnings inside the book called Little House on the Prairie. So the whole damn thing has changed in life. And young people, you know, what does this burnout mean, for God's sake? You know, I mean, they've been mollycoddled. They've been told they can't say boo to a goose unless they get, you know, and they get bloody offended by God knows what. I mean, who invented this word burnout anyway, for God's sake? I mean, listen, Jess, I agree there are pressures. Of course there are. But there have been pressures for years and years and years. I think young people now are completely different from, say, 40 years ago or whatever. But then 40 years ago, we never had social media. We didn't have phrases like burnout. We didn't have whatever. People got on with work and what have you. And I know some people will be listening to this and they'll say, Charlie, you're a bloody actor, for Christ's sake. What do you know about stress? And I said, well, I'll tell you what. You want to try being a young actor when you start off in the business 40 years ago. There's more stress than you can shake a stick at, but you got on with it. You never had burnout and all the rest of it. I just think it's a symptom of all the stuff we are being told now. I mean, we could go down the road. I digress slightly, but if you tell a young person from the age of 4 that they're going to be offended by something, it's not a bit of wonder by the time they get to 18, they get bloody knackered if they do an 8-hour day.
Well, you know, I think that's a good question, Jess. So is this actually the fault of the older generation? At the end of the day, they're the ones who are setting standards at schools, the teachers and the people in authority. They're the ones saying you should be offended by that.
Fault.
Oh, it's not your fault.
Fault.
Well, who's teaching the kids that this stuff is bad? Like they should be offended by everything. Who's teaching them?
The teaching profession are doing it, for God's sake.
Well, I would say that's the older generation. I don't know. I mean, Jess, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think also we've been fed a lie that if we go to university, if we try hard at school, that we will have a successful job, that we will earn a lot of money in our job. When the reality is a lot of young people finish going to university. Oftentimes we've been fed this lie that all universities are equal. You know, you can get a degree from Bolton University and it'll be the same as going to Oxford. And I love Bolton, but I don't think it's the same level. And then a lot of these young people, after racking up so much debt, they end up just working a job as, I don't know, a manager at a local shop, when they wouldn't have to go for all that and they didn't have to go through university to get that position. So it's no wonder so many young people feel disillusioned. And especially considering how depressed wages are, it's like, I honestly just don't think there's any point to working hard, especially, like I said before, most of these jobs seem soulless. They don't seem like they care about you. And I feel like a lot of young people don't relate to having an email job. They don't like that. And that's the only thing going for them. That's the only thing they can offer, when in reality, that's not fulfilling work.
Well, Charlie, look, I mean, some generations have been through the financial crash. They haven't had much time to get into the workplace as young people vying, one person for, was it 50 jobs? It's tough out there. Are young people just suffering because of bad political decisions in this country?
Oh, Jesus, there's a big question, Alex. Look, I don't deny, Jess, that, you know, young people, it's difficult, but it's always been difficult. I I suspect that because we tell them it's difficult and because, there is no choice. Get your arse in gear and get on with something. You have to. But I mean, look, our British Army, recruiting is way down and all the rest of it. Our whole society has changed, and young people have been, if you like, I won't use the phrase I want to, but they've been dumped upon. But listen, there is no choice. You either knuckle down and get on with it, and dig a hole in the road or do whatever. But I suspect it's very hard. So, listen, it's hard for me to disagree with you, Jess. And I know, Alex, you want me to disagree with her. And
I want you to say what you actually think. I really do, Charlie.
Yes, but I do think some of the young people I meet, with huge exceptions, are literally, God help us if it was 1939, but with notable exceptions, I have a lot of young friends who are great people and work hard. They go to university in the bloody morning and then they work in the boozer at night. Do you know what I mean? To get some money and all the rest of it. But I do meet some very, very disappointing, bone-idle young people who complain about stress and all the rest of it. And actually, they couldn't even spell the frigging word.
Well, look, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, both of you. Jess, Charlie, thanks so much for coming on the show. Coming up, supermarket giant Asda backs our great British farmers in the backlash over inheritance tax hikes. Is it time Labour threw in the towel and admit it's just a terrible policy? And coming up, the Prime Minister pledges a 100-year pact with Ukraine, suggesting there could be British boots on the ground, and he gives away the Chagos Islands, all without consulting Parliament. Does the Prime Minister just hate democracy? And in a moment, we'll go live to GB News' very own Bev Turner, who's in Washington, D.C., ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. We'll be right back after this break.
Good evening. It's time for your latest Met Office weather forecast for GB News. Now, as we go through this coming weekend, it is going to be pretty chilly, despite the fact that there may be a bit more sunshine on offer than we've had through today, at least. Still heavily under the influence of high pressure, this clinging on for quite a while, but eventually, as we go through this weekend, a front will push in. But for the time being, any frontal systems staying to the northwest, so the wet weather across northwest Scotland through today, that clears away this evening, so a largely dry picture overnight. A lot of cloud though, clear breaks really confined to just northern parts of Scotland and a few breaks elsewhere. Where we get the clear breaks, temperatures will drop a touch of frost. Even under the cloud though, it is going to be a cold and perhaps even frosty start first thing tomorrow morning. Like I said, the greatest breaks overnight will be across northern parts of Scotland. So here a bright start, but a chilly one for some places here. Further south, it is looking largely cloudy, limited breaks in the cloud overnight and first thing tomorrow morning. So not a huge amount of sunshine. And across much of England and Wales, a lot of cloud, and that cloud is going to be quite thick. So there will be some spots of drizzly rain around. And with temperatures in some places close to or a little bit below freezing, that drizzly rain could actually come in the form of snow grains instead in some places. But as we go into the afternoon, a greater chance of seeing some sunny skies, especially across parts of northern England, Wales, the southwest, and also northern parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland too. That being said, temperatures are likely to be a little bit lower than today, and in the south it's going to be pretty chilly, and even further north only around average for the time of year. After a potentially foggy and frosty start on Sunday, it is going to be a similar day to Saturday really for many places. Some sunshine, but a bit of rain starting to push its way in from the west, although this doesn't look especially heavy. Staying largely cloudy as we go through the outlook period into the beginning of next week, and temperatures a little bit on the low side. Bye-bye.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's go live across the pond to see how things are looking ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. I'm joined, of course, by the fantastic Bev Turner. Bev, what's going on over there?
Hi, Alex. Well, of course, this is Washington, D.C. We are 5 hours behind you there in the UK. The sun is shining. It's just gone behind the clouds. And when it does, let me tell you, the temperature drops here. And the predictions for Monday is that it could reach lows of -11 Celsius. So the decision was taken only a few hours ago to change everything. I don't know whether you can see behind me here, there's the White House in the background. We've also got the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Memorial, that huge obelisk sticking up into the sky. And around this, on the ground, around a lot of these monuments, are lots of seats which have been put out for people. There are the American bleachers like you would get in a sports hall. They now will not be used in the same way because the decision was taken only this afternoon to move the event inside. So the inauguration itself will happen in the Capital One Arena. That's normally would host basketball events, ice hockey here in DC. And now everybody who is there, who's got a ticket, the lucky people to see the inauguration, will be indoors. That's been taken because, of course, the weather being so cold, it would be impossible for what could be a 5-hour event for people who are here to sit out in those sorts of temperatures. So it's all changed. It's going to be indoors, Alex.
Wow. This is going to be like a Trump rally almost, is it not, Bev? Like, this is famous sort of ground for Trump. He's always in those big stadiums or out somewhere massive. This is going to be very familiar for Donald Trump, is it not?
It is, and in fact there is a rally. The last rally is on Sunday afternoon here. There are a lot of Brits actually have travelled over for that rally. You'd have to look out for some Union Jacks in the Union Jack flags in the stadium there. But yes, it will have that atmosphere of a rally. But of course, this is as close as America gets, really, effectively, to the pomp and ceremony that we do so well in the UK. So I imagine the mood on Sunday will be quite it will be quite somber to some extent. It will be more reverential. It will be a more formal occasion than we've been used to seeing in those sorts of rallies previously. And of course, all change here. At the moment, the flags are flying at half-mast at the White House. So that was because of the funeral of President Carter, but Donald Trump doesn't want to be inaugurated with those flags at half-mast. So the feeling is they will be raised on Monday, if not earlier, on Sunday evening. But it's an amazing time to be here this weekend. The roads, funnily enough, were quite quiet this morning. Apparently a lot of the locals get out of town on a weekend like this, whilst all the tourists, of course, and the supporters come in. But also security is a massive consideration here this weekend. There's lots of fencing around, which is to keep buildings safe, actually, from vehicles. And a lot of this fencing means it's quite difficult to get around the pavement. So you'll find yourself walking along and then there's a gated entrance. And so it makes it quite difficult. The locals just decide we're just getting out of here. But as I say, a lot of change now. The roads are getting busier. As I look down here, it's kind of rush hour here. But it's all going to be amazing, Alex. I think Monday is going to be so historic. Only the second president in history to have a second term. I don't know whether you saw any of that interview that Melania Trump did with Fox News, talking about the fact that she feels very differently about going to live in that house for the second time, that she knows what she's prepared for now and is to some degree, I think, looking forward to it.
Bev, I'm extremely jealous. Look, wrap up warm and have a fantastic time. I'm sure we'll see more of you over the coming days. Thank you so much for joining us, Bev. Moving on, though, the Prime Minister has pledged an historic 100-year pact with Ukraine, hinting at the possibility of even British troops being deployed on the ground as a peacekeeping measure. Now, this comes after they unilaterally decided to push for the handover of the Chagos Islands. Yet all of this was done without consulting our parliament first, a centuries-old process that is the backbone of our free society. So I'm asking the question, does the Prime Minister hate democracy? Let's get the views of my superstar panel. Political consultant Suzanne Evans, Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity Stephen Wolfe, and journalist and broadcaster JJ Anasobi. Stephen, look, I mean, a lot of people will say this is the job of the Prime Minister. He's got to go out, he's got to make statements like this. But we've seen quite a lot of foreign policy announcements happening abroad. I mean, the Prime Minister spent months, it feels like, abroad. He's barely here. So is he just avoiding Parliament to avoid scrutiny?
Yeah, but the only place he's not being invited is the Trump inauguration. So there you go. I'm not surprised. And we can all be very jealous. Having been to one myself already, it was incredibly exciting. But what you clearly see about Keir Starmer is not necessarily, I don't think he dislikes democracy. It's just that he doesn't have the respect for the democracy that we have. In terms of this 100-year deal, he didn't put it in a manifesto. We didn't get a chance to vote on it. Isn't that what autocrats do? They just do something if they've not allowed the people to vote on it. Then he's not allowed Parliament to actually have a discussion on it, debate on it, and a vote on it. Isn't that what autocrats do? They just push it through without their team. And even if he did have a debate, he'd make sure that all his MPs would vote for him. That's exactly what autocrats do. They ensure that their team do as the boss says. So is it disliked for democracy, or is it our democracy is beginning to resemble that of the same autocrats that we say we dislike in Russia? I think there are some similarities, and he has to get a grip on this.
Well, just to clarify, I mean, you know, there has never been a Prime Minister invited. It's not, you know, they don't always get invited to inaugurations. It's not just a Keir Starmer thing. We want to make that clear. That JJ, surely we should be having some form of public consultation about all this stuff. I mean, the Chagosians haven't had one, from what they're saying. I mean, he sold himself as this big moral man of piety almost. Come on, he's got to do better than this, surely, JJ, hasn't he?
My problem with Starmer, excuse me, is that, the person who he sold himself to be, the person who I voted for, is not the person that I'm now seeing. I don't think he disrespects or doesn't like democracy. I think he's leading. And actually, to be honest, we voted for him, so I don't want to have him come back and say to Parliament every time, and I'm going to do this next week, and I'm going to do this next week. Just do your job, get on with it. I don't want to have to back and forth. But I don't want us to be giving money to the Ukraine. When Labour told us there's not enough money to pay for my dad, a retired man who worked for the local council his whole life, there's not enough money to pay for his heating, but we're going to give $3.5 billion a year to Ukraine. To me, that makes no sense.
Well, Suzanne, that's a really good point, right? I mean, surely we've got to prioritise British citizens first. That's my opinion.
He won't. Let's remember, Keir Starmer is the man who famously gave an interview, and he was asked the question, "Dear Starmer, which do you prefer, Westminster or Davos?" And he plumped for the World Economic Forum in Davos. So let's just make this clear. That is a club, an unelected club of billionaires. And he would rather be with them than in the own British Parliament. And I think that speaks volumes. Stephen's absolutely right. He's behaving like an autocrat. He's behaving like a communist dictator. And that is why. Because fundamentally, he puts the kind of global elite, a technocratic globalism before the Westminster Parliament.
That's why he likes the European Union.
There's fair criticism here because Starmer criticised Rishi Sunak for flying around the world, constantly making the same pledges. So is this just not politics? Is this not how politics is played? The Tories did similar stuff. Rishi Sunak made billions in pledges.
It's called hypocrisy, not politics. It's
hypocrisy? It's absolutely hypocrisy, but this is actually also what Tony Blair did. When Tony Blair was beginning to fail in the polls, the next thing he did was start to disappear all over the globe. Bill Clinton did it it, when his economic policies were failing, he went all across the globe, and we saw it with Blair. It led even to more tragedy for him and millions of people dying. But I think what you've got is the playbook of the Labour Party's communications and PR team is saying it's a disaster in the UK at the moment. We've got pensioners who are going to actually freeze to death over this winter. We're making sure that our economy is collapsing. We're going to have to see retail sectors start to collapse in April, particularly when VAT is coming in. Get you out of the country. Make yourself look like you are some super statesman. The problem is, everybody who is looking at Keir Starmer is not really seeing him as a super statesman at all.
Well, let's see that clip about Davos. If we could put it up on the screen, actually, that'd be really great.
Let's just ask you quickly, you have to choose now between Davos or Westminster?
Davos.
Why?
Because Westminster is too constrained.
JJ, are we seeing that Keir Starmer?
I've just never seen that. That's shocking.
Have you never seen that? Well, there you go.
That's shocking.
Is this the man that's our Prime Minister, or was, this a play to the wider community to sort of bring them into Britain again? Because he obviously accused Rishi Sunak of pushing and shunning the European community. Or is this the real Keir Starmer?
I think this is the real Keir Starmer. I think it's the real Keir Starmer. Yeah, he stood up. This is who we've elected. And for the next 4.5-ish years, this is the guy who's going to be at the head of our country, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, there you go, everybody. The panel has the final say. Coming up at 10 p.m, Rachel Reeves, the Iron Chancellor or the Irony Chancellor? I'll be asking if she's cracking under the pressure. I came up with that. But next, supermarket giant Asda backs our great British farmers in the backlash over inheritance tax hikes. Is it time Labour just threw in the towel and admit this policy is dead? This is Patrick Christys tonight, only on GB News.
This January, history will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you or someone you know is looking for winter sun over the next few days, it will be breezy across much of the Med with some wet weather for Italy, but a lot of fine weather for Portugal and Spain, at least on Saturday. We're going to see sunny skies, a few drops of rain there for Gibraltar, but this system, named Storm Gabri by the Italians, is going to bring some very wet and windy weather through Sardinia, Sicily and much of Italy. That moves away through next week and it turns more unsettled in Spain.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lately, it's getting much better. People getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture of the skin. It just gives like volumetric result or remove the wrinkles temporarily.
So what are the most popular treatments that people are after?
According to a statistic report, first is anti-wrinkle, then dermal filler, then energy-based device. But lately, biostimulators also became very popular. And
So what do you mean by biostimulators?
Biostimulator, any substance that can change the texture of the skin, or like it will lead to postpone the aging process, or proliferate more collagen, increase the elasticity of the skin, such as polynucleotide or exosome, or different vitamins and minerals in the form of mesotherapy considered as a biostimulator.
Turkey's a particularly popular destination because the costs are so much lower. There have also been a lot of horror stories about what can happen when things go wrong, even people dying from post-surgery complications. What would you advise people?
Choose, as a practitioner or surgeon, very carefully, and never prioritize price over quality. This is your face after all, your body after all. And mistakes can be reversible. It can be irreversible, and sometimes it's not like a booking restaurant or hotel. It's a sensitive matter that can affect their confidence and skin and body for life. So they need to choose very wisely. They need to search what kind of methodology that particular surgeon, they perform the treatments. Are they using any safety tools?
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Farmers across the country have parked their tractors and blasted their horns outside supermarkets in a bold protest against the recent inheritance tax changes announced in the autumn budget. Only one major supermarket, Asda, has stepped up to support the farmers. An Asda spokesman said, "We have been raising our concerns with the government and will be supporting the NFU's campaign, calling for a pause in the implementation of APR to allow for a proper consultation." Is it time that the government, after months, finally admit they've got this wrong? It's still not too late for a U-turn. Well, I'm joined now by farmer and campaigner Andrew Ward. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show. Look, many people are calling this a PR stunt, that the supermarkets don't actually have anything to lose. Do you think that's right, or is this actually going to help you guys in some way?
Yeah, hello, Alex. I don't think it's a PR stunt. Besides Asda, we also had 3 or 4 days ago, Morrison's come out in huge support of us. And this is what we need. And I don't think it is a PR stunt. And today, when you look at the huge sort of public support we had, we saw Bev Turner a few minutes ago in America saying it was going to be -11. Well, we certainly haven't had that frosty reception here in the UK today, far from it. And we've had something like 500, 550 supermarkets being attended by 5 to 10 tractors per supermarket all over the UK. Wow. And the reception we've had from the public and the support has been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's been absolutely fantastic to see so much public support for you all. How do you get the government on side? Because I know that the Prime Minister's refused to meet with farmers before. How are you going to win this battle with them? What's your strategy in the long run?
It is really difficult, Alex, because on the one hand, you've got somebody who, whenever he comes on TV, to everybody looking, he's so po-faced, he's so absolutely resistant. And also Rachel Reeves, they say they're not going to go back, they're not going to U-turn. But there is a compromise in this. There is a way that everybody can win out of this. Because at the minute, all they're doing with their £1 million threshold is they're protecting the people that come out of the city with a lot of money to buy a family home with 10 acres of grass. That's all they're protecting. But when you start to look at the returns from farming and the way that we produce the food, the way we look after the environment, it's huge. And I don't know how we're going to do this, but
I'm sorry to cut you off here. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I will have you back on the show. Thank you. Next, Rachel Reeves. I'll be asking, is she cracking under the pressure? Back in a minute.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. It's time for your latest Met Office weather forecast for GB News. Now, as we go through this coming weekend, it is going to be pretty chilly, despite the fact that there may be a bit more sunshine on offer than we've had through today, at least. Still heavily under the influence of high pressure, this clinging on for quite a while, but eventually, as we go through this weekend, a front will push in. But for the time being, any frontal systems staying to the northwest, so the wet weather across northwest Scotland through today, that clears away this evening, so a largely dry picture overnight. A lot of cloud though, clear breaks really confined to just northern parts of Scotland and a few breaks elsewhere. Where we get the clear breaks, temperatures will drop a touch of frost. Even under the cloud though, it is going to be a cold and perhaps even frosty start first thing tomorrow morning. Like I said, the greatest breaks overnight will be across northern parts of Scotland. So here a bright start, but a chilly one for some places here. Further south, it is looking largely cloudy, limited breaks in the cloud overnight and first thing tomorrow morning. So not a huge amount of sunshine. And across much of England and Wales, a lot of cloud, and that cloud is going to be quite thick. So there will be some spots of drizzly rain around. And with temperatures in some places close to or a little bit below freezing, that drizzly rain could actually come in the form of snow grains instead in some places. But as we go into the afternoon, a greater chance of seeing some sunny skies, especially across parts of northern England, Wales, the southwest, and also northern parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland too. That being said, temperatures are likely to be a little bit lower than today. And in the south, it's going to be pretty chilly, and even further north, only around average for the time of year. After a potentially foggy and frosty start on Sunday, it is going to be a similar day to Saturday, really, for many places. Some sunshine, but a bit of rain starting to push its way in from the west, although this doesn't look especially heavy. Staying largely cloudy as we go through the outlook period into the beginning of next week, and temperatures a little bit on the low side. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. That's tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this year. What would you spend it on? £50,000 could buy those treats you've always dreamed of having. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 10 p.m. and this is Patrick Christys Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong. I'm covering for Patrick tonight while he's taking a very well-deserved night off. But please don't worry, Patrick's going to be back with you all on Monday evening. And as you know, I'll always give you forthright opinions on top of today's top stories. But brace yourselves, because nothing is off limits on tonight's show.
Well, you know, what makes me wince is when I look at my bank statement.
Is Rachel Reeves all right? The Chancellor has been battling severe public pressure and calls for her resignation as the economy has been taking a severe battering. I'll be asking, is she cracking under the pressure? And...
That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Get out of my pub.
Yeah, is the government calling last orders on free speech in pubs? We'll hear from a man who's seen this all before, and what he has to say is going to shock you, trust me. And we'll be getting all your front pages hot off the press with my superstar panel, Suzanne Evans, Stephen Wolfe and JJ Anasobi. Oh, and take a look at this. Donald Trump's about to have the most important day of his life again. But what unusual gift has he been given to commemorate it? Get ready, Britain, here we go. Is Rachel Reeves really on the rocks? Next.
Alex, thank you very much. The top stories from the GB newsroom. A group of 8 men who were part of a West Yorkshire grooming gang in the late 1990s have all been jailed. 3 of the men, 47-year-old Ibra Hussain and brothers 62-year-old Imtiaz Ahmed and 45-year-old Fayaz Ahmed, all from Keighley, were sentenced for rape today. They were found guilty of assaults on a girl after a trial in November and December last year. 5 other men were jailed last year for their involvement. The court heard the offenders had targeted 2 children. Meanwhile,
if we're going to be tough, yeah, let's have the inquiry. Just as you say, you're quite right about that. But I don't think we should let the government get away with not taking the action now. We need to take the action now. And I think that's what Liberal Democrats would urge the government and all opposition parties. And I'm sure you would agree, we do need action now.
That was, of course, Sir Ed Davey there, and he's welcomed the government's announcement for a series of local inquiries into the grooming gang scandal. The Home Secretary announced government-backed local reviews in 5 areas yesterday, stopping short of committing to a full-scale national inquiry. A lawyer representing victims told GB News there may be hundreds of thousands of victims in every town and city across the country. In other news, the man who served 14 years in jail for the murder of schoolboy Jimmy Mizzen has been recalled to prison for breaching his licence conditions. Jake Fahry killed Jimmy and in 2008 was sentenced to 14 years. The 35-year-old was released on licence in June, almost 2 years ago, following his 14-year term, but was recalled yesterday morning. Now, part of the rapper's parole agreement includes being barred from entering the Greenwich Borough of London. But in music videos found by the Sun newspaper and watched by his victim's family, Fahry, who goes by the alias 10, was filmed in front of Canary Wharf inside the area. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy says the BBC should reflect on the decision to showcase the drill rapper, who was promoted on their One Extra radio show. And TikTok is to be banned in the US from Sunday if it's not sold by its Chinese parent company, the Supreme Court has today ruled. However, President Joe Biden says he won't enforce the ban for the few remaining hours he's in office, leaving it up to President-elect Donald Trump to decide what to do when he enters the White House on Monday. After the ruling today, the White House released a statement saying TikTok should remain available to Americans. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Is Rachel Reeves all right? In a series of bizarre interviews over the last week, the Chancellor is looking more and more exhausted, raising questions about whether she's still up to the top job. What do you make of this?
Today, the Business Secretary is announcing inward investment in the car manufacturing sector in Sunderland, and it's why I announced a deal this week to help British business export more to China.
Yeah, she's looking a little tired there, but despite the pressure, the Shadow Chancellor has proclaimed herself the Iron Chancellor. It's a rather bold title, isn't it? One that conjures up images of Margaret Thatcher-esque confidence, a steely resolve to tackle the toughest economic challenges. But let's be honest, Does Rachel really look like someone who's as ironclad as Thatcher, or is she more tinfoil than titanium? Of course, the Chancellor has defended her handling of the economy. She told the House of Commons the economic headwinds being faced by the UK meant the government had to go further and faster in their plan to kickstart economic growth, slamming the previous Tories government handling of the economy. And then there's her recent anecdote about her mum.
We didn't have loads of money. We weren't poor. My mum was a primary school teacher, as I said. My parents split up when I was at primary school, so we didn't have loads of money. And so she needed to make sure that everything that she was spending, she could afford. And I remember that very vividly, her sitting at the kitchen table with the receipts, and she kept them all, and her bank statements, and ticked them off to make sure she knew she wasn't overspending compared with the income that she had coming in.
All right, fair enough. Well, Reeves has shared that her mother was very careful with money coming in and out. And you'd assume this is a metaphor for how she's running the economy and how she runs her own finances, right? Well...
It make you wince. You know, what makes me wince is when I look at my bank statement and I find that the money coming in is increasingly short of the money going out.
Yeah, that's despite the Chancellor declaring over £350,000 in earnings in 2023, a year before that interview took place. I don't know about you, but that sends shivers down my spine. How can you get yourself in the red with all that money? And to top it all off, when she was Shadow Chancellor, she was happy to call out stagnating GDP figures and low growth under the Tories, but not the exact same economic conditions that the rhetoric has entirely changed since she's created that for our British economy.
We have now drawn a line under the inheritance that I faced. Public finances are now on a firm footing, and also our public services are funded in a proper way. And we've now set the envelope for those public services for the rest of this Parliament, which means we're not going to have to come back for more.
Well, if this is the Iron Chancellor in action, one can't help but wonder if the rust is already showing. It's just a bit rich, isn't it? Like, maybe the Chancellor should rebrand herself the Irony Chancellor instead of the Iron Chancellor. But let's get the thoughts of my panel on this. Political consultant Suzanne Evans, Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, journalist and broadcaster, JJ Anasobi. I'm almost there, all right? It's a longer walk than it looks like, all right? All right, JJ. She called for Liz Truss to resign. The Labour Party called for Liz Truss to resign. We had far worse economic conditions. Surely it's time to go, right?
Tony Blair said a few months ago that Labour, when in government, should be careful about calling for the opposition to resign. Don't be saying things just too rash, because when it's your turn, the same will apply to you. And they should have taken heed of Sir Tony's words. And by the way, Stephen, I love Tony Blair. Best Prime Minister we ever had. Regardless.
I can hear the viewers.
Kwasi Kwarteng, the former Chancellor, who was famously sacked by Truss, he's come out today and said Keir Starmer cannot sack Reeves. If he does, he'll be the next one to go straight away. And for that reason, he doesn't think that Reeves will be in danger.
Form, isn't it? I mean, I remember talking to Kwasi Kwarteng when he was fired after the Liz Truss mini-budget, and he said to him, don't fire me, because it'll be you next. Of course, he was absolutely right. But this Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, she is so far out of her depth, she needs a submarine to go and rescue her.
Very good. Very good.
I'm no economist by any means, but my goodness, I've got a better grasp of economy and business than she has. It's a disaster. She keeps talking about growth. That's the thing. Growth, growth, growth. She hasn't got a clue about growth. She's got so little clue. She's got to go and ask other people, what do I do to get growth? Her budget was a completely anti-growth budget. The economy has tanked since. You know, before that budget under Rishi Sunak, who I wasn't the greatest fan of, the economy was, and to quote the Office for Budget Responsibility, going gangbusters. And now here we are, stagnation for the last quarter of 2024. A disaster. She really is dreadful. She hasn't got a clue.
Look, Stephen, this is pure hypocrisy, is it not? I mean, she was on Twitter calling out the last government for stagnating the economy. We're in worse economic conditions, potentially, than they were. I mean, she's a hypocrite, right? At the bare minimum.
I think she is a hypocrite, and I just love the idea about Kwasi Kwarteng, because at the time that he was actually being fired for exactly the same sort of reasons, he was wearing the similar sort of outfit and suit that we're wearing at the same time. But we're obviously in the stylish... Suzanne's got the rose between the two thoughts that are coming here. And she's in such a big hole, she needs a whole set of moles to dig her out. Yeah. So there we are, we're going to throw
I love that back in.
But, yeah, you know, you've got to look at the way that she has come in. She has seemed erratic to me in many ways in some of these statements that she's coming to. But really, when she's turning around and saying that she's got the whole of the economy set, that public finances are set, and yet she's got worse debt figures coming in.
Yes.
The markets have risen interest rates to a higher level than that of Liz Truss. And we've already seen markets fall. We've got the AIM market now collapsing by another 6%. Companies relisting in other countries, and business people turning around and saying this is only the start, with sterling falling too.
Yeah.
So all the major macroeconomic figures that we have are not pointing to a government that is in control of its finances, but the market saying a government that is losing control, but quickly.
JJ, sorry, Suzanne, go on.
No, I was just going to say the AIM market falling, as Stephen said, because she removed the inheritance tax relief off that junior stock market. So it's a disaster. I mean, the stock market, the FTSE's hit the 100's hit an all-time high today. But that is only because she's crashed the economy. So the Bank of England is going to have to reduce interest rates. So, of course, it's gone up.
Yeah.
Well, JJ, look, we've got to restore business confidence. You know, business confidence is at an all-time low. I mean, the only way to do that when the Tories had the mini-budget was to sack the Prime Minister, sack the Chancellor, and reaffirm to the country and to the business community that things are going to change. Surely, that we set a precedent. We have had business leaders calling for her to go.
If we sack Starmer...
Is it wait, to protect... I mean, you're saying that Keir Starmer's keeping her in as a shield.
Yeah, essentially.
What do you think
if you sack Starmer, who are you going to put in place that's going to make everything stable? I don't think there's a leader in the Labour Party who can take over. I really don't think there is. I would rather at this point have Sunak back in power than have anyone else in Labour. I'd rather have Suzanne in power than Starmer.
Suzanne in power, and I'll become the Chancellor. I'm perfectly happy with that.
Quite frankly, Rishi Sunak spent tons of British taxpayer money. Maybe
he did.
Quite well in the Labour Party.
With Rachel Reeves, don't forget, before they were in power, all the business leaders were saying how great she was. She was doing tours. They're like, we're going to have stability again. This is what we need. This is going to be great. All this, whether she lied or whether she said stuff that she wanted to do and it hasn't happened, the people who I don't know anything about business, the people who know about business said she was great. Suddenly now, those people are saying, no good.
The change in story here was the £22 billion black hole that we don't hear the end of. I question that.
It was also, you read the Labour Party manifesto, as I did actually yesterday. She said it was going to be the most pro-business government ever. And then she did what she did at the budget, £70 billion extra in public spending, $25 billion slammed on businesses.
If you look
no
at
wonder they're backtracking.
And JJ's right about the way that there was a love-in between the business community. But if you look at that business community, I heard the interview with Wolfson, Lord Wolfson on Radio 4 yesterday, the way that they are subtly backtracking in a way, well, yeah, I may well have supported her. You know, she did look at it right, but she's just not really helping. They're actually stating that she's damaging the economy really badly, but not wanting to hurt her too much, because by doing so, it actually means that they themselves should be open to criticism too.
Can I also...
too close to her.
Sorry, just to add, Suzanne said she read the manifesto last night of Labour. Babe, we've got to get you out more, darling. You can't be at home doing that. Come on.
Did you? I bet you were just watching all the clips. I know exactly what you're doing.
It's actually really is interesting, actually. I do like to read party manifestos after the election.
She's a political consultant. She's got to do this.
She's doing her job. Suzanne's like the Ted Cruz. He would go to parties and read the Constitution of the United States on dates.
One more thing that's in that manifesto.
Go on, enlighten us.
That manifesto says that they're going to spend £1 billion on carbon capture. It ended up being what? 21 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all terrible, terrible.
So, I mean, what have we got to do here? I mean, has there got to be an emergency budget, Stephen? Have we got to have an emergency budget to reset the standards, cut, go into austerity?
I think two things are going to they're going to try and do, first of all, is keep Rachel Reeves, because they know the basic principle of politics. If you allow your first head to go, then it opens up. They've already let a couple of minor ones go, but a major one to go, that opens up the door. And the second one is they will try and hold on as long as possible, at least till April, before they have any view on doing some more budgets, because if they do that, that rattles the markets. The fact that she comes too early, then the bond markets will come out and the bond market vultures will start looking at. What will be interesting is amongst those big bond market vultures are BlackRock and Fink is a big funder and donor to Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. Will they actually bite the hand that is currently feeding them?
That's really interesting. JJ, do you think there's a conflict between what the Prime Minister wants in terms of growth and this high tax, high debt budget that we've got here? Surely we've got to look at some of the ideas that Liz Truss had, cut to grow the economy.
Perhaps. I used to deride the Tories as being out of touch. Sunak had his swimming pool that cost £20 million a year to heat, or whatever the price was. I thought they were a party that went out of touch with the working man. I thought Labour was supposed to be my party. They were the ones who were going to help the working man. They're not going to tax the working man. They're going to put more money in our pocket.
Are we getting a live JJ?
I'm joining Reform. No.
One at a time. Spirit is in the room with us.
Not only are we wearing the same clothes, but I was supporting Tony Blair. As he became Prime Minister, I moved away from him, realising the Socialists weren't the ones helping the working class. And now I'm feeling it from this side. Come to the right. Come to the right.
Talking of money, all right, talking of money. We've got to move on. All right, talking of money, it's time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year, and it's your chance to win 50 grand in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could all be yours. Here are all the details you need to win that whopping 50k.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good stuff. Coming up, I'll have all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages with my panel. But first, it's rumoured that censorship on chat in pubs is a bygone reminiscence of totalitarian regimes. A man who lived through one of them shares his concerns with us here on GB News. I'll be joined by pianist and commentator Cornell Opera. What a great name, by the way. He's going to be on just a moment. I'm Alex Armstrong, and this is Patrick Christys Tonight.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We were talking earlier about the issue of Siri listening to you. Well, it's not just your own conversations being sort of harvested for data, but it's a problem with AI. So what seems to have happened yesterday is that Apple issued a alert saying that Luke Littler had won the darts before he had. I mean, imagine what would, if he then gone on to lose, how that would have looked. I mean, obviously, because he went on to win, at least they got the story right, but before it had happened. So what it seems to happen is that the AI farms existing stories, and what it has done, that's the alert. We can see the alert there now, and it also claiming that Brazilian tennis player Rafael Nadal had come out as gay when actually a different Brazilian tennis player was actually mentioned in the original story. So what it does is you see that's branded as BBC Sport. What the Apple AI system does is it farms alerts that it thinks people are getting from the source and then summarises them into one alert.
Looks to me like you would assume, OK, the BBC are reporting this.
Absolutely.
So the BBC News might be saying something else.
So it could happen to any news organisation.
This has highlighted a massive issue. I mean, having editorial judgment and quality control, because if this is going on, it's just contributing to the flow of misinformation.
Yes.
And we know that this is a problem on social media, people reporting false things. But if it seems to come from trusted news sources, that is a massive issue in credibility. I mean, if you had something like Reuters, who's a big news provider, doing this, you could hold people accountable, you could make changes, but when it's the AI doing it, I mean, what do? You're going to have to reprogram it in some way.
And if you just lost control, if you're a news source, you've lost control of what goes out, because it basically farms it, puts your logo on it and sends it out, even when it's nonsense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
The UK's proposed employment rights bill may require employers, including pub landlords, to be responsible for harassment by customers or third parties. This has raised serious concerns about potential restrictions on free speech in those venues, including pubs. Whilst the news sounds somewhat like an account from Winston Smith in George Orwell's 1984, it could be eerily reminiscent on the methods of totalitarian states in the haunt of Europe's history. It is a slippery slope into surveillance statism, in my opinion. But let's find out from someone who knows all about it. I'm joined now by pianist and commentator Cornell Opera. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Listen, there's been much critique of Keir Starmer over recent months on his attack or supposed attacks on free speech. Some are even calling him Keir Stalin. In your experience, indeed, what should we do? What should we be concerned about? And tell us a little bit about what you've seen in your own country.
So, obviously, as you said, it's a slippery slope. It's a restriction of the right to freedom of expression. And this takes me back to communism, under which I grew up. And when people were scared to talk, you had to be scared of who could overhear you speak and what you were saying, of course. There were informers everywhere and basically policing each other. It's like that's what the Labour Party wants for us now, to police each other now. And basically have less and less, I suppose, rights.
Yeah, well, we're talking about Romania. That's where you're from. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, Cornell. But how did people react when they started to see their liberties taken away from them? And what should people watch out for, I guess? This is what I think the burning question on British people's minds is they're fearful to write things online and,
Yeah, I mean, we can't write anymore online as well. If you were telling me maybe 12 months ago that you might be put in prison if you write something on social media, I would have laughed, I think. And I can't believe that I'm coming from an Eastern European country. I'm in Western Europe, and actually the whole thing has shifted, and we are going the same way now, basically.
And when you came to the UK, what were your expectations for free speech? Have they shifted over time? Would it make you look twice at Romania and say, maybe it's time for me to leave the UK and go back there?
Yes, probably. Indeed, I mean...
I'm not saying you should, by the way. I'm just asking whether
No, I mean, I always saw Britain as a very, very forward-thinking country and the freedom of speech and all that. And I can see how slowly it's being taken away. And you think, what will be next? Like, for example, under communist Romania, you couldn't walk on the street more than 3 people together.
Wow.
No more congregations, nothing, in case you were plotting something. So I'm seeing slowly that, I mean, as you said, the pub, that's the whole point of people going and discussing. You have a beer, you discuss politics, you discuss all sorts. So now even that liberty, that freedom is taken from people. And in the end, you'll just be coming from work, go home, and all the freedom, all the liberties being taken slowly.
You know, when you look at Romania compared to the UK, do you feel the same sort of sense of Orwellianism or communism sneaking in to Britain through institutions, through our politics? I mean, you know, it's hard when you're living here to see these things happen, but if you maybe perhaps compare liberties from the 1980s to 2024 all overnight, people would go, oh my goodness, what's happening? Do you think that this slow creep is actually why people aren't awake to maybe some of the accusations of the taking away of their freedom of speech?
Yeah. It's. I think people are noticing it, and they see this slow erosion. It's just like turning down people's voices, basically, and it's like this ECHR, and they are, I don't know, like sort of excuses that we try to protect this group of people, this and other, but basically you can see that slowly we have less and less rights, and that's a fact. That is a fact.
What was it like for you when the communist regime took over? What was the initial feeling amongst people in Romania? Did they start to reject that? From your opinion, we could speak to, obviously, members of your family that may have been around when that happened. What was the initial feeling amongst people?
Yeah, I mean, I was born under the regime, and people were you just keep your head down, and I think just go along with it until basically Britain feels now like a communist country in its last years. You know, basically when Romania just had to execute their dictator. So
I just want to make it clear, we are not calling for the execution of any politicians. Just so we're clear, I know you're not saying that. I know you're not saying that, Cornel.
I'm not
saying
clear. I'm not calling for anything. No.
Good stuff.
But yeah, it's you can see, and I can see these similarities.
Yes.
That the fear, like now, that you can be banned from a pub, and it doesn't really actually make sense, because if it's about protecting a certain group of people, employers won't employ them.
Well, I think that's really important, and lots of people, pub landlords watching, will think twice about when they employ somebody. They'll want to maybe even see their social media accounts. But look, Cornel, thank you so much for coming on tonight. That's all we've got time for. That's pianist and commentator Cornel Oprah. Coming up, all of your tomorrow's newspapers front pages with me and 4 analysts. Analysis. I've got to do what I'm saying. From our press pack, sorry. I'm Alex Armstrong, and this is Patrick Christys Tonight.
Good evening. It's time for your latest Met Office weather forecast for GB News. Now, as we go through this coming weekend, it is going to be pretty chilly, despite the fact that there may be a bit more sunshine on offer than we've had through today, at least. Still heavily under the influence of high pressure, this clinging on for quite a while, but eventually, as we go through this weekend, a front will push in. But for the time being, any frontal systems staying to the northwest, so the wet weather across northwest Scotland through today, that clears away this evening, so a largely dry picture overnight. overnight. A lot of cloud though, clear breaks really confined to just northern parts of Scotland and a few breaks elsewhere. Where we get the clear breaks, temperatures will drop a touch of frost. Even under the cloud though, it is going to be a cold and perhaps even frosty start first thing tomorrow morning. Like I said, the greatest breaks overnight will be across northern parts of Scotland. So here a bright start, but a chilly one for some places here. Further south, it is looking largely cloudy, limited breaks in the cloud overnight and first thing tomorrow morning. So not a huge amount of sunshine. And across much of England and Wales, a lot of cloud, and that cloud is going to be quite thick. So there will be some spots of drizzly rain around. And with temperatures in some places close to or a little bit below freezing, that drizzly rain could actually come in the form of snow grains instead in some places. But as we go into the afternoon, a greater chance of seeing some sunny skies, especially across parts of northern England, Wales, the southwest, and also northern parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland too. That being said, temperatures are likely to be a little bit lower than today. And in the south, it's going to be pretty chilly, and even further north, only around average for the time of year. After a potentially foggy and frosty start on Sunday, it is going to be a similar day to Saturday, really, for many places. Some sunshine, but a bit of rain starting to push its way in from the west, although this doesn't look especially heavy. Staying largely cloudy as we go through the outlook period into the beginning of next week, and temperatures a little bit on the low side. Bye-bye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
All right, let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. And we are going to get some analysis. There you go, I got it out. Okay. Daily Star, let's have a look at that first. Okay. Make Hollywood great again. Orange Man baby, Donald Trump's first job as leader of the free world is to give Rocky Balboa the mega important job of restoring the golden age of Hollywood. That's the Daily Star. The Independent's leading with, at last, countdown to the ceasefire and release of hostages begins. Moving on to the Eye. Train drivers to demand bigger 2025 pay deal in new headache for Labour. They're at it again, aren't they? Pesky train drivers. Anyway, Daily Express, don't you dare target triple lock. Again, maybe some more trouble there brewing for the government and Kemi Badenoch. And the Daily Mail's got an interesting exclusive. The Fuhrer was heavenly. He is an angel. OK, please no one clip that up. It was a piece of work found after 80 years, a secret diary of Hitler's English girlfriend. And we've got the Times leading on Labour's plans to trigger an exodus of millionaires. OK, well, I'm still joined by my political panel here. We've got political consultant Suzanne Evans, Director of Centre and Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and journalist and broadcaster JJ Anasobi. OK, guys, maybe let's take a look at that Eye front page, because I think this has really caught my eye. There you go. That's my only for the night. Yeah, I'm here all weekend. Okay.
No laughing matter, though, is it?
No laughing matter,
no
actually,
laughing
because
matter.
this is a serious problem. Train drivers have already just got some whopping inflation-busting deals. Now they're demanding it all over again. I thought Labour were going to put an end to this constant demand for union pay, but they're back, Stephen.
Yeah, and did we see someone before Christmas from the Labour Party say or admit that a number of the trains were not working or going because there wasn't enough train drivers because they're not putting overtime in?
Yes,
because
that's right.
They've had such a good wage rate.
It wasn't in the recommendations for. It wasn't in there.
I know, but when you look, and this shocks a lot of people when I put that number out, £75,000 a year is actually in the top 8% income earners in this country. And it actually is in the top 1.5% income earners in the world.
Susanna, are we paying them too much? Are we now? Is it now just wild?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, this is money that's coming off people who are on the minimum wage, who still have to pay tax in this country, which I think is a disgrace. If you're on minimum wage, you shouldn't have to pay tax. You're basically, this is a kind of reverse Robin Hood policy. You're ripping off the poor to pay the rich. And as Stephen has just said, train drivers are among the richest people in the country. I think it's obscene.
Yeah, the average UK train driver salary is £59,000. People, where I grew up, I think on my street, the best person worked in a Thomas Cook. She earned about 23,000 a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if you're getting 59k a year to be a train driver, I'm not being funny. It ain't rocket science. It ain't rocket science to drive a train, to push a few buttons. They're not pilots. I think it's ridiculous, and Labour are going to have to take this head on if they want to keep people like me on side.
I mean, look, I think it's a really difficult thing to do because they've opened the door now. And, you know, everyone else is demanding a pay rise. And the country wants a pay rise because it wants to get out of this low-growth economy, doesn't it?
Well, who do I go to GB News to ask for a pay rise as well?
Listen, it's well above my pay grade. I'm still trying to figure out the word analysis. Anyway, let's move on to the Daily Express for a second here, because I think this is an up-and-coming battle. And it seems to me like Labour and Tories might be in lockstep on this. I mean, Kemi Badenoch, of course, came out the other day, and I did a podcast or an interview. She said she's going to have a look at the triple lock on pensions. Starmer may, of course, do this as well to raise some cash. I mean, pensions have been hit hard enough, haven't they, JJ?
If they dared to mess with the triple lock, then what I would, as a Labour supporter myself, I'd be saying this is a Labour government who hates pensioners. They hate old people. Yeah. They cannot do it. After freezing our pensioners in winter, they cannot follow up with this because the whole country will turn against them completely.
Yeah, that's right as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I heard Kemi Badenoch say this earlier, and I was absolutely appalled. I know she's rowing back from it now, but I'm sorry, Kemi, the cat's out of the bag. You clearly think pensions are there to be messed with. We know Labour thinks pensions are there to be messed with. A lot of the think tanks are saying they need to have a means-tested pension system along the lines that they have in Canada, for example. I mean, you know, I'm not that far off retirement. Absolutely livid.
No, and I think it is exactly what we're saying. This is an attack on the elderly. It's an attack on old people in this country who've contributed to it. And the reality is this isn't where the biggest amount of the pension issue is. The biggest amount of the pension issue is the civil service unfunded pension schemes that we've got, where for the major people who are employed by the civil service don't contribute like you and I do into a pension out of our salaries. They get a pension based on what they're earning, either a full top-up or a portion of it, coming straight from the taxpayers' money.
Well, quite.
They've never had to contribute. If you really want to deal with it, and I think the Taxpayers Alliance came out with a figure that this is into the trillions.
I'm not surprised.
Then you should deal with that first.
Didn't we also top up the gold-plated pensions in the civil service not that long ago? I think we put an extra billion or something, a couple of billion in, because they're not putting enough in.
The rest of us have to work so many years. I've got another couple of years to work before I get a full state pension, and now what? Potentially you won't get it. Shocking
stuff. I also just want to turn quickly to the Times, because I think this is again another bit of trouble for Rachel Reeves. She's talking. I mean, we're talking here that the Labour's tax plans trigger an exodus of millionaires. This is a huge rise in rich quitting the UK since the election. A record number of millionaires have left Britain since Keir Starmer came to power. I mean, JJ, look, this is clearly not a budget of growth, is it? This is a budget of the exact opposite, many would argue.
I am sceptical about how many millionaires are going to be leaving the country. I'm only sceptical about it because I feel when people go on strike, and I've just derided the train drivers, but when the NHS nurses were going on strike, some people were saying they're holding the country to ransom. How dare they?
Right.
In a similar way, millionaires are saying, well, if you want to tax us more money for all the money we're making, then we're going to leave, and then you'll be screwed. It's kind of a similar thing.
It's slightly different to that, JJ, because I worked in the asset management business there. Yes, it's their hedge funds, and I dealt with lots of people who were investing from across the globe. And they were using the intelligence and talent of fund managers based here in London. And one of the attractive elements was, if I earn my salary here in the UK, I pay tax on it. So they paid their tax on their income and their bonuses. What they were saying is the money that I had before I came to this country shouldn't be taxed here. And that's the problem. Yeah, and what they're saying now is, I plan to go, it's my retirement, it's my pension, it's my business abroad. Why should that be taxed in the UK? So they're saying enough's enough. And they are starting to leave. And what that means is that they take their businesses with them, or a portion of it, and it's now going to the United Arab Emirates. It's going to Dubai. And lots of people in the financial markets are telling me, Stephen, if you really want to look to where the new markets for financial services sector, go there. And does it correlate with what's happening into the UK?
Can I just say,
so.
I want to put some colour to JJ. You know, you said you're a bit dubious of it. The Times are saying here, in total, Britain lost a net 10,800 millionaires last year. That's a 157% increase on 2023. That's quite a lot, isn't it, Suzanne?
Yeah, I mean, I know 3 who've gone or are going in the process, and I am not the kind of person... I tell you, I'm not, unfortunately, I don't know that many millionaires, but I do. And, you know, it's not just non-doms, it's people who, younger people who are thinking, I've got no future in this country, I'll go and get a job in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's people who've had businesses and thinking, my goodness, they're whacking up taxes. I'm going to move it abroad. Then I won't have to pay the tax. I'll disappear off to Monaco or wherever it is that they're going to go for a few years and then sell it so I don't have to pay the tax. Because ultimately, it's that old Laffer curve.
Yeah.
The idea that the higher you tax people, the more people are going to avoid taxes. And so your tax take actually goes down. And that's already happened about the Scotch Whisky Association. The Chancellors, not just Rachel Reeves, but Jeremy Hunt before, upped tax on whiskey.
We have a really concerning element that we're bringing in hundreds of thousands, almost 1 million a year, but of low-income people from across the globe to take jobs of asylum.
And we've seen the GDP per capita number.
We've got a lot of rich people leaving, and it's not just to Dubai. You've got European countries like Latvia and Lithuania that don't have an inheritance tax.
Yeah.
So it's not that they have to go far. They're just looking at the opportunities for themselves.
Right.
And why not? When the world is global, we'll bring in the poor from across the world, and we have to pay for them, but we're not going to try and keep those who can actually fund them.
Alex, of course, Stephen and Suzanne are going to say this because they're both millionaires. That's why. I've exposed them.
I just want to move on to a slightly different topic before we start all exposing each other's bank accounts on here. I just want to go to the Daily Star very, very briefly, because they're leading with Trump basically saying, make Hollywood great again. That's what they're saying. Orange Man Baby is going after Hollywood, they say. Now, I actually think this is quite smart, because California brings in tons and tons and tons of capital to America, and Hollywood is one of its biggest exports.
Yeah.
But movies have sucked, in my opinion, of recent times. They've got super woke, they're unwatchable. Like, even Disney had a terrible year, and they traditionally are just smashing out the park.
Disney has gone more woke than anything.
It really has,
Disney
hasn't
is
it?
just... Walt Disney be turning in his grave, really.
He would be.
I think what we should do now is pitch that movie, The Orange Man. I'll be the screenwriter. Let's do that.
Would you watch a Donald Trump movie?
100%. And it will get made for sure. Look, you're right, Hollywood is massive. But the reason Hollywood has been faltering, I think, is because most of the money they can make now is in China and Asia. So they're having to make films that are for that market, and they're having to tone down bits and take things out of here. I used to live in the Middle East. I'd go and watch films, and it just cut. They'd take out kissing scenes. A man holding a girl's hand, it gets cut.
We even saw in China, they actually, one of the, I think it was Star Wars or something, we had John Boyega as one of the lead actors of that show. They actually reduced his screen time, his screen time down for the Chinese audience.
Yeah.
They preach it to a certain group of people, but not a bunch of others.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy stuff.
And
really
actually, to be fair, Europe, and particularly Germany and Britain, have been actually funding America and lots of European countries for the last decade. We've been keeping them alive because of our taxpayers. And we pay through tax grants to allow movies to be made here as long as our employees or people from the UK work in this. And Trump recognises the failure of Hollywood. But Hollywood is also very important for brand America. Brand America is about to say how good we are, how bright we are. And as Suzanne said, with Disney being so woke, brand America is going broke.
Well, we're actually seeing like big shows, foreign languages, Netflix. So we've got it's not Hunger Games. What am I thinking of? The big show, Squid Game.
Squid Game. Yeah.
That's all in South Korean, I believe.
Yeah.
So we're seeing meteoric rise of foreign films. This wouldn't have been talked about like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember all films were English. And now we're seeing this rise because I think America's losing out, and I actually think Donald Trump is right. Maybe not his top priority. Maybe not his top priority.
Maybe stop kids in schools having to practice to avoid getting shot. Maybe sort that out before you sort out Hollywood.
I think there's more pressing matters happening. Coming up, the rest of tomorrow's papers will be delivered shortly. See you then. This is Patrick Christys Tonight.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
If you or someone you know is looking for winter sun over the next few days, it will be breezy across much of the Med with some wet weather for Italy, but a lot of fine weather for Portugal and Spain, at least on Saturday. We're going to see sunny skies, a few drops of rain there for Gibraltar, but this system, named Storm Gabri by the Italians, is going to bring some very wet and windy weather through Sardinia, Sicily and much of Italy. That moves away through next week and it turns more unsettled in Spain.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Lauren, let's start with this, shall we? How children's TV may be harming, not helping young minds.
Yeah, so this is an article in the Express today, a big double-page spread as a result of some new research in a new book that's coming out by a child psychologist, saying that children's television, and I think perhaps more importantly, the way that children consume television and video product now is perhaps not as healthy for them as we would hope it would be. And there's quite some distance from children's television of the past, of the sort of the Bagpuss and Clangers and Ivor the Engine era. And I think what's interesting about this is particularly the how children's television is consumed angle, because children are now put in front of screens significantly more often than they were, certainly when I think we were growing up. The content that they are consuming is not great for their brains and their learning and development, which Floella Benjamin of children's television fame is now leading a big crusade to say that some of this is really, really bad for children.
These days, they're not watching the TV that we all watched when we were growing up. They're not even watching GB News in the morning.
What are they thinking?
Would you believe it? But they are watching this absolute drivel all day long on YouTube, and because obviously all our TVs are now connected to the internet, or they're getting TikTok on their TV. It's not even, so they don't even necessarily have to have smartphones or iPads. They can just watch this stuff on TV, and it is rubbish. They are watching it and they're obsessed with it. Oh God, Skibbity Toilet or something. Have you heard of this?
No.
No? Well, you'll have viewers who have got who are parents of sort of 13-year-olds, and this Skibbity Toilet thing is, they're all obsessed with it, and this is a really annoying sort of theme tune or thing that they sing at you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. This is Patrick Christys. Only on GB News. I've got some of your pages. Now, we've got the Telegraph here. All on stuff. Britain puts future of the islands on hold as Mandelson ramps up anti-China rhetoric. Okay, and then let's move on to the Mirror. Tributes to a football great. Farewell to the lawman. Legendary Man United striker Dennis dies at 84. Very sad, very, very sad news. And The Sun. Killers arrest after Sun probe. Murder rapper sent back to jail. Jimmy's mum, Farry, heartless. No remorse, they're saying. Murderer Jake Farry was branded heartless by the mum of the teen victim, Jimmy Mitson, after showing no remorse in his sentencing. OK, let's maybe start off with something a little bit lighter on the Daily Telegraph, because, of course, Daily Telegraph's got that picture of Liz Truss in her Make America Great Again hat. She's obviously going to the inauguration. She actually told me last week she's in transit, so I was like, well, I guess you're going to the inauguration. But look, the important part of this story is that Trump is going to get the final say on the Chagos Islands. And I don't know what you guys think, but surely this is a sign of a declining nation where we're handing over, whether or not you agree with Starmer's deal and whether it should happen, surely we should have the final say. JJ? No?
I'll let Suzanne go first.
Yeah, go on.
Go on,
Suzanne.
Suzanne.
Go on then. Pass the buck.
So we've had this huge row, haven't we, this week about whether, or well, in fact, last week too, about whether Elon Musk should get involved in British politics.
Yes.
There's been a big debate about that. But frankly, I'll put my hands up. If Trump gets involved in this one and stops it, good on him. I'm very pleased because it's an absolute disgrace that we're giving away British territory and paying for the privilege. So wrong.
So, Stephen, look,
Yeah,
you know...
I hope Trump can make a difference.
Well, let's see. I mean, Stephen, you know, there's lots of criticisms of, you know, as Suzanne was saying, of foreign billionaires, foreign politicians. You know, we've had a lot of that lately. Now, is it a bit hypocritical? Labour are now saying, we'll let him make the final call? Or is it just diplomacy playing out the way it should?
I think they're just frightened of Trump, to be honest. And,
well, what do you think they'd be frightened of?
They're really recognising that we are a declining nation and they're making it worse.
Yeah.
And I think it's really fascinating when you look at that picture of Liz Truss, who is looking fantastic despite all the criticism she had, outside the Mayflower, the most important hotel in Washington, which I think is where Bev was interviewing from, because it has that backdrop over there. That's very, very significant that she's there at the inauguration, and, you know, incredibly jealous that the capability of going there. And I think that's really where they're going to be looking at individuals like her within the camp, whether it's Musk or whether it's Kernovich, whether it's the Stephen Miller on immigration. Those sort of individuals are looking around, who in Britain can we trust when we move forward? Because I don't think this is just 4 years with Trump. It'll move on to Vance after that.
Yeah.
Before. This could be 12 years of this MAGA.
OK, sorry, guys, we've got to leave it there. President-elect Donald Trump, we're just talking about him. He's received the first presidential commemorative inaugural gift. Any guesses on what it is?
Diet Coke. Oh.
You spoiled it. JJ.
It says at the bottom.
All right. Yes, it's a Diet Coke bottle from the chairman and CEO of Coca-Cola, James Quincy. I mean, he loves Coca-Cola, obviously. I mean, he has it all the time, doesn't he? Fantastic stuff. OK, coming up... we'll get a Coca-Cola next time. All right, coming up next, it's Headliners, presented tonight by Leo Kearse. What do you have coming up, Leo?
Hello, Alex, how you doing?
Hello, I can see you now.
Tonight we've got a cracking show. We're going to have the latest on that drill rapper who was platformed by the BBC, who turned out to be a murderer. He murdered a 16-year-old boy, and he's now happily back in jail. Well, he's not happy about it, but we are very happy to see he's off the streets. We've also got the latest on the Attorney General, Labour's top legal advisor, who is getting in deeper hot water. He was in trouble for possibly profiting from Jerry Adams getting a payout from the government, and now he's in trouble for possibly, or he's been accused of helping migrants stay in the UK, possibly twisting the rules, or, you know, bending the rules. We've also got Hitler's ex-girlfriend diaries, and we've got a BLM activist whose favourite black life was herself, and she spent lots of public money on herself.
OK, that sounds fantastic. I hope Hitler's ex-girlfriend's not actually coming on the show. But that would be really entertaining. OK, one quick word from each of my panel. What would you give Trump as your inaugural gift? Very quickly.
Oh, a nice big sloppy kiss.
Big kiss? Gosh. Stephen?
A Man United football.
Man United, JJ?
I'd give him a Spurs football shirt so he can know the true pain of being a English football fan.
I mean, I think they do what they should do for Obama. I'd give him a Nobel Peace Prize, because he's already sold the prize to the Middle East, hasn't he? Yeah, don't you think of that one?
Go to the next inauguration.
Well, exactly, right. I mean, they all just seem to be handed out to anyone these days. Okie dokie. Anyway, thank you all for joining me and bearing with me tonight. I'm still finding my feet doing all this stuff, so thank you for bearing with me. I'll be back, actually, believe it or not, from 9 p.m. tomorrow. But thank you for joining the show tonight. Pat's back on Monday. Next up is Headliners, and that's after your weather with Alex Burkle. Very good night to you all. Thank you.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. It's time for your latest Met Office weather forecast for GB News. Now, as we go through this coming weekend, it is going to be pretty chilly, despite the fact that there may be a bit more sunshine on offer than we've had through today, at least. Still heavily under the influence of high pressure, this clinging on for quite a while, but eventually, as we go through this weekend, a front will push in. But for the time being, any frontal systems staying to the northwest, so the wet weather across northwest Scotland through today, that clears away this evening, so a largely dry picture overnight. A lot of cloud though, clear breaks really confined to just northern parts of Scotland and a few breaks elsewhere. Where we get the clear breaks, temperatures will drop a touch of frost. Even under the cloud though, it is going to be a cold and perhaps even frosty start first thing tomorrow morning. Like I said, the greatest breaks overnight will be across northern parts of Scotland, so here a bright start but a chilly one for some places here. Further south, it is looking largely cloudy, limited breaks in the cloud overnight and first thing tomorrow morning, so not a huge amount of sunshine. And across much of England and Wales, a lot of cloud, and that cloud is going to be quite thick, so there will be some spots of drizzly rain around, and with temperatures in some places close to or a little bit below freezing, that drizzly rain could actually come in the form of snow grains instead in some places. But as we go into the afternoon, a greater chance of seeing some sunny skies, especially across parts of northern England, Wales, the southwest, and also northern parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland too. That being said, temperatures are likely to be a little bit lower than today, and in the south it's going to be pretty chilly, and even further north only around average for the time of year. After a potentially foggy and frosty start on Sunday, it is going to be a similar day to Saturday really for many places. Some sunshine, but a bit of rain starting to push its way in from the west, although this doesn't look especially heavy. Staying largely cloudy as we go through the outlook period into the beginning of next week, and temperatures a little bit on the low side. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter to do it, it happens to people like me.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lately, it's getting much better. The people getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture